Well, I am so excited because I'm here with Chantal Kreviazuk, and this is someone who I have listened to and followed for a very long time, and it's a voice where you can pick it out of anywhere. Welcome, Chantal. I'm so happy to chat with you. Before I do a little intro, how are you holding up in Los Angeles there?
I'm okay. I just go day by day, never has that been so much more prevalent, the idea of taking things day by day. So in that respect, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. I'm actually doing I'm trying to do a house cleanse right now. A purge. And so every day I commit to like one drawer or one corner or something like that. But inevitably I get a little bit more done. So that's exciting. I cannot believe the amount of crap that I have accumulated. And it's really exciting to take it down.
Yes. Okay. You're speaking my language. I actually have a whole series on decluttering and the whole, the joy of that's my thing. And I just moved, so I'm purging. But before we jump into that, I want to just do an intro for anybody who's been living under a rock. I've done a deep dive on you, so let me know if I've missed anything. Okay. All right. So Chantal is a Canadian singer, songwriter, composer, pianist, and actress, born in Winnipeg, and you are a Juno Award winner. You have 3 boys with your husband, Ray Maida, who is the frontman for Our Lady Peace. And you have collaborated with superstars such as Drake, Christina Aguilera, Kendrick Lamar, and Pink. You and your 3 boys so I believe you have homes in Toronto and Los Angeles, but you've been in Los Angeles for the last couple of years, mostly due to COVID. And let's see what else. There's so much, I had to break it down. But you spend a lot of your time with different charities, including War Child. Some of your newest projects are very collaborative with Rain, including Moon versus Sun, which is a collaborative music project. And I believe at one point a podcast, which I want to ask you more about. And you also created a documentary together called I'm Gonna Break Your Heart, which, by the way, that song gives me goosebumps. I have not watched the documentary yet, but it is so good. And I read a line in your bio, and I have to read this because I feel like that just hit home for me. If you get out of bed and put one foot forward, you're changing every day. I'm someone new. I love that because I feel like that just resonated so much with me. So did I nail it? Did I miss anything, would you say, on kind of a deep dive in what you're working on?
I'm sure there's a lot more, but a lot of it can't be said until, certain people have passed on. So, how that is. There's lots to my life. What's been really interesting for me over the past couple of days and weeks, as we've been hearing about, the Indigenous people of Canada, I've become really touched and emotional in a way that I've never felt before. And, my husband's Italian on his father's side. And, he's Italian. There's things about him that are Italian, and there's no getting away from it, and I observe how his dad came from Italy and was born there, and so my husband's first generation. And I can see how quickly things get lost, like language. He doesn't really fully speak Italian. And I see how culture is just so important. And that's kind of where my heart is right now, is I'm thinking about culture and culture's connection to the earth.
Interesting. Yes.
And how we're slowly getting more and more sort of disconnected from this earth as we lose our culture. One of the things that's come up for me is, my grandmother's names 5 and 4 grandmothers ago were Apistis Quasish and Meth Kukuman Escu.
Yes,
I can just imagine Yeah, they were Indigenous women. And I can just imagine how connected they were to the earth. They literally were sustaining the land, you know, up in the north, where my ancestors are sort of from. Apparently they're from actually probably further south, but they went up to create York Factory and sustain the new trading industry. Anyway, the point is that now you have a Kukumanescu, then you have a Pistisquaisish, then you have, you know, another grandma, my mom, and now me. And I am someone who is pensive, and so I think probably, and reflective. And so, and I have such an imagination. So I think I'm a little more connected to nature, but mostly my culture on my maternal side is somewhat gone. We were taught to be ashamed of our native side. And I now, what has been really emotional for me over the past couple of days is that I can see in my grandmother's personality, I was very close with her, and she was so freaking awesome and freaking talented. Her and my grandfather were a musical duo. She played the mouth harp, she called it. And it was the harmonica, and my grandfather played the fiddle. My first memory is sitting on my grandfather's lap while he played the fiddle, and my grandmother was across from him in the kitchen in front of the refrigerator on a chair, and they were playing music together. My grandmother she was just absolutely phenomenal. But I'm reflecting on her personality and how she protected us from being Indigenous. And I used to think it was just racism. And now I see that it was a matter of life and death.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yes. I've had conversations with other people having the exact same revelations as well.
Yeah. It's painful. It's really painful. And I'm weepy. I want to talk to her. And, you know, and thank her for loving us so much and for being such a good mom. You know, she was such a she was a mom to everyone. And I see where, like, I'm such a hustler. I'm such a worker bee. And I always sort of thought I got it from my grandmother on my other side, my baba. My father is Ukrainian, and his mother had 12 children, and she would push out a baby and get back in the field like the next day, kind of thing. And they were potato farmers. She'd be picking potatoes. And I thought I got it from her, but, you know, I'm thinking a lot about my grandmother and the hustler in me. Like, my grandmother was such a hustler. I mean, she pleased everybody. She was, up until she was about 91, she cooked for everybody in her building. And everyone was welcome in her house. Her house, I would go over to her apartment, the door was just open because everybody was coming and going. You know, she was so friendly and social. And I am such a social butterfly, just like her. And I can see where, you know, her cause was to be friendly and please and make sure she was unoffensive and there for everyone, very self-sacrificing, but not somebody that was, you know, sticking out or like on any level intimidating or offense, you know. And I can see where all that comes from now. You know, she married a white man. Her children, 3 out of 6 of them are brown. I mean, they are so Indigenous. And then the other 3, you know, they're lighter, and one of them is blonde. And so I can see where she was trying to create. I wrote in a post yesterday, I said she was yielding us toward white. And those words came to me, and feel they're not from me. They're from a truth that is much bigger than me. And so now, you know, when people talk to me, I have friends who are white, like very white, and they say, you know, you should be really careful about saying that you're Indigenous. I mean, I'm North American Indian. I'm about to get my status. I am North American. I won't even need a passport.
Wow.
North American Indian, you know, and yet, and on my side, I think to myself now, like, wow, my mom didn't get that until she was almost 80. I'm not getting it till I'm almost 50. And yet I have friends who are like, or even family members who are like, I don't know why, like, what are you? You're white. You don't have that. And I'm like, hold on a second. My grandmothers sacrificed their culture. They gave away their culture for their children to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the ultimate sacrifice. And by the way, John, it stops at me. So once I get this, my children don't get it. They used to give it to the husband, no longer.
Really?
So now,
so why would your kids not get it?
No, that's the way it is. So it's done. So imagine there are people saying like, and I used to agree with people. I'd be like, yeah, I haven't suffered. I've had a great life. Why would I need it? I mean, by the way, I don't even know that I would benefit from it. I mean, what am I going to do? Use it to go get my pharmacy stuff? Okay, fine, whatever. But the point is that
it's honoring them. It's honoring their legacy and what they went through and their sacrifices.
They gave up their country, their culture, their lives, their dignity. I mean, and so I'm like, yo, I've completely flipped a switch, and I'm like, yo, it stops at me, and my mom only got it at 80, and my grandmother only had Métis status. Like, are you crazy? No, I'm taking it. It's going to be, and I'm on, and I have, people saying, well, you got to be really careful when you talk about being, blah, blah, blah. And what I am going to talk about is I am going to say, that's fair. I have not suffered, but I did watch my mother's side. I watched the suffering. I grew up around the suffering. I am fully aware of it. And I am now fully aware of how much has been lost.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is like you're keeping your culture alive doing this and honoring them and talking about it, because if you don't, it ends. And I'm curious, hearing you talk about this, 2 questions. I had these other questions, but now you've got some new ones going for me.
Ask away. It's fine. It's fine.
Is how, so you talked about the music from your childhood. Do you feel like, and you're thinking about it's consuming you lately and you've been moved emotionally. Do you feel like it's inspiring music in you, how you're going to incorporate that and also
so
parenting?
Interesting. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how it shows up in the music for me. I do know that the songs I write for other people, they're very different. And when I go back to write a solo, and what I do with Rain is very different, but when I go back to write a solo album, it'll be bonkers. It always is. My last solo album is so weird and I love it. It's like, it's just where I was in that moment. And it's really cool, because the more I make solo albums, the more true to me they become in that moment, because I really don't give a flying fuck. Like, I don't really care. Like, it's not going on the fucking radio. I know that. So who cares? So, I'm going to talk about it now. I have an image. I'm looking at the hill in front of my house. I have such a beautiful view from my office, and often the deer go by, and I so enjoy being up here. Now I've got my son and your son. They're playing their video games. My son is in his room with his new setup. It's dark in his room, and he's got his whole setup, and he thinks he's going to be a professional gamer someday. My other 2 boys evaded that. My older boys, but my younger boy's pretty sucked in right now, and I'm trying to keep him interested in his sports and language and music and
which has not been easy during the pandemic.
It's not.
It's been really very hard.
It's not. But the image I have in my head is, and it could show up, I'm just speculating, but I think it could show up in my next album, is how here I am, this product of these incredibly cultured women who were connected to the earth, to this planet. And I read an article that came through to me randomly, an email yesterday, saying that it really is so significant, the loss of the culture and the loss of the connection to the earth, and how when and if we are to be more honoring of Indigenous Canada, we can then let that leadership of how to live on this planet come back in a more healthy way. And so, but there we've got you and we've got our boys in their rooms and they're playing on their game, and they're in another world. They're not in this world. When I was my son's age, I was at this moment at my son's age, I was in the farm town, gardening with my grandpa or my grandma or my uncle or my dad, or I was in the field with my Gigi, on the tractor, I mean, I was on the land.
Yes.
And I'm not, my kids aren't in the land. They're not in the land. And we didn't even want our kids to surf because all the kids who surf here smoke dope. So we were like, well, let's not do that, because that's what a lot of the families do. They send their kids for surfing here, and I'm like, nah, I don't know. But even then, at least they might have been high, but at least they would have been connected to the water.
I've been there, and I've watched like the high school classes having their surfing class first thing in the morning, and it's just like it's beautiful, but yeah, it's so hard. It's
hard to make those decisions, you know. And then if you have been playing sports, there's some major benefits there, but then they're in the gym, and then we're in the gym, and it's like, well, at least we're playing basketball and we're not cooking on the baseball field and getting cancer on our faces. I mean, you have all these like, what if I do this? What if I do that? But anyway, back to what I might speculate about in my album. If I do another solo album, I could really see myself talking about things from a more universe, like from the universe perspective. And it's like, why am I'm in this like sort of spot where I'm thinking about my connection to the earth and where I come from culturally, and my love for that, you know, being a part of the planet. And then also the understanding that we are being pulled away to another place that is not here. We really are. And this is not, you know, and then, you know, you have people like, you get the, oh, well, it's all a simulation. And, you know, people have these amazing theories. And I swear to God, every once in a while, I'm like, yeah, what's the crux of all this? Like, what's the, you know, I mean, I ask some pretty, obviously I'm a thinker, and I ask some pretty big questions, but, you know, I guess ultimately the big question is, what is balance and what is healthy?
Yes. And I think I totally agree. What is balance? What is healthy? And I think also it's that being in touch with yourself, and how much of your life are you living for other people versus for your family and yourself and your passions. And it's so easy to get off track, and you every once in a while have to pull yourself back on. And I think that that's kind of something that you're going through. And it circles back to one of the questions I actually do really want to ask you, because I think, and I love talking to moms about this, because I think there's just so much, quite frankly, like bullshit out there about parenting. And I love to talk to moms about this one truth, because I think that everyone feels like they're isolated in their experience of motherhood. And the more we talk about this and this real experience, I think it's so good for parents. And obviously, like, it's even what you're talking about, worrying about your son and you know, if you bring him in this direction, where's that going to lead him? Bring him in, like, it's all the
what ifs
and everything.
The
what ifs.
Yeah.
When you became a mom, and did you find it kind of, and sometimes I know, and I'm sure you know this too, especially having multiple children, sometimes it doesn't happen with some, but there's the more challenging kids where it's like the whole world is turned upside down. And do you feel like motherhood or moments in parenting tied to parenting, and maybe this is what you're going through right now too, have really kind of, you're not the same person you were, and it's completely changed who you are, and you have to rediscover yourself. And sometimes it's just not what you expected, and it burns you to the ground, and then you have to really dig your way out, and it's a better version of yourself. But tell me about that. Do you feel like, and I feel like it happens often, and especially when you have kids.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a strong believer in the reset, you know, and watch your body. Your body tells you a lot. Your body tells you a lot. Like my husband, I can remember, like, during the pandemic at some point, I think this was about a year ago, but he got something right, really right. And I remember I was just in that rageful PMS, and like, now I'm sure I'm probably really menopausal at this point or something, because like the rage is so crazy when it comes in. I literally turn into another person for about 48 hours, where I literally feel like my filter came off, or like I was stolen by aliens. And I'm not, and I'm like, no, that ain't working. It's so funny. I literally, and I have to like do all this, have a dashboard and do all this like narrative training with myself and self-calming and reminders. And it's hilarious, but it's like my dashboard is like, emergency.
Oh, it's like PMS too. I read this amazing book called Do Less, and it is all about the way you work. You should be doing different types of work at different types of your cycle. So when I'm certain types of my cycle.
So interesting.
I film, I batch film, I will like put the makeup on and do whichever. And the other parts, it's like, I do really deep, you know, blog posts and writing about something that's just really,
that's not
like,
stupid.
I'm ready to share. I think the women need to tap into that more. And
they
really,
do, because, you know, the narrative, when you're in that state of mind, it feels, it's very fluid how it comes in. It's subtle, but it's a beast. And you really buy it. You buy it. And you know what? It's not true. I'll tell you why it's not true. Because sometimes it's so convincing for me that I'm like, no, that's right. Go pack your bag, Chantal. Go to the airport. It's about $650. You'll be in Bora Bora. You can stay for 5 days and fly home. Like literally, you know. And
you're like,
no, for real. But I've realized it's not true. And here is why. When we have this incredible amount of rage and narcissism and this feeling that we do everything and no one does anything, and what did I do? I was like someone turned me into a zombie, and I had children, I had trucks drive through my body, I've been picking up after them, I've been driving, I've been denying myself of all of this incredible amount of energy and talent and stuff for you know, myself. And, you know, you get all this, you know, and why, and no one appreciates it, and F everyone, and blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing. For many generations, men have been trained to not feel or show expression. They have been, their emotional volume has
suppressed
to zero. And so, and they've been trained to, you know, be strong and just power through and ignore thoughts and feelings. I mean, think about it. Most people, they're not even aware of what they are thinking and feeling at least 90% of the time.
Yep.
Right? So that's powerful. So what I've come to grips with is, you know, in that moment when I believe the subtle, you know, and really, and remember, it's the exiting of your ability to have children. So the hatred might be necessary. The hate and the spite might be necessary, because otherwise you might just be really in a place of grief and sadness. And it's a way of like, no, definitely don't want more babies. No children. Thank you. Like you're letting it go. So it's okay. I get what nature maybe wanted. But here's the thing. There's no need to hate on men. We forgive and we feel compassion for men, because all of the things that we acknowledge ourselves as going through, the truth is that they're going through a lot too. They have been.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but somewhere there's the flaw came in when we were allowed to express how we feel. And we got to be so self-indulgent and indulged, and they are not, they naturally are not. It's been suppressed since they were little. So they're not demanding of it. They're not asking of it. So,
and I think to piggyback on that, I think that women have been allowed to and are encouraged to really grow and like morph through that phase of life, where men, anytime they want to change a bit, it's seen as like a midlife crisis or something. But really, they are going through something too. Their kids are in a certain age.
Some of the stuff they do, it's really weird and unattractive. And I'm like, what are you doing? But because they have been sort of suppressed, they're not like, look, the molesters, the killers, like, I mean, there's so many of these freaking shows about true crime. How could that many people be killing and hurting people? That's insanity. That's like a lot of the population. Like we're living in a minefield. So one has to ask oneself, why are that many men doing that many things that are violent and scary in our society?
I think it's suppression. I think it's suppression. We're getting into like a really deep, but I think it's suppression from childhood. I think
it has to be.
And I think it's a limit of self-expression. I think that they're wanting to, you know, so many men, like small to big, like everything from, you know, wanting to change a job to, you know, killing to affairs. I think a lot of it stems from feeling suppressed.
The pathology, I think there's deficiencies. I think that by taking away the ability to emote.
Yes.
What? No, emote, you know? And I know some people naturally emote more than others. But yeah, it's important. It's important to teach young people, young boys to actually stop and say, okay, what am I thinking and what am I feeling right now?
Yep.
And what am I actually thinking or feeling, you know?
And as a parent, so my son has 3 daughters who emote all the time, very loud. He's half the time in his room because of the volume level and emotions and everything.
Okay, wait, your son has 3 daughters or your boyfriend?
That's right. My son has 3 sisters. My son has 3 little sisters. That's what I meant to say.
Wow.
So, and I have 3 daughters, and they are loud and they're emotional. And he will often just be like, I can't, I got to go to my room. And I'm always trying to make sure I pull him out of himself because he's a very sweet, quiet guy. And I'm like, and if sometimes he'll get mad and I'll have to catch myself and like, let him feel the feelings. Like he so goes with it. So you have 3 boys, and how do you foster that? How do you encourage, you know, talking about feelings? And
I mean, I probably push boundaries a little bit. Like my middle is just not interested that much in sharing feelings and experiences. So when he does, I really show up for it. And then I might piggyback a little bit later on, and then he shuts me down, and I'm never telling you anything again, Mom, because I told you and now you're talking about it again, you know?
What are their ages? What are their ages again?
I have one who is 17 and a half. And I have one who is 16 and one who's 13.
Okay.
Yeah. Just 16 and just 13 this month. So, so yeah, my oldest is very emotive, tells so much, and is a singer-songwriter, and, you know, lots going on there and lots of experiences, most shared, you know, and he was a sick kid. He had asthma real bad. So there was a lot of sort of syndrome of wanting his independence that he couldn't have. He was very dependent on adults, and children who have that tend to turn out a little different and act out. I'm like, why are you acting out? There's nothing even like going on in our house that should make you, and we've never hit our children. We work toward nonviolent, you know, conflict resolutions. We get it wrong. And then of course we try to do repair, and, you know, it's been a pretty thoughtful environment. So, you know, this is my vet. One sec. Oh no, they got it. Okay. So, yeah. So, I mean, it's exciting that we have at least one child that does emote, because I think it, you know, for all of the, you know, the drama that the major emoter can be, I think that they also can offer an opportunity for the younger ones to even subconsciously know that, you know, feelings exist, and
they're okay.
And, you know, and I'm always saying, like, okay, you have taken a lot of the space. I have 2 other children. They're sitting behind you in the car. You see them? Guys, tell me about your day. What's going on?
You actually have to, I will have to say you got like 1 more minute left, and then you're next, and then you're next, and then you're next. I
think that's the way to go.
You have to. I was one of 4, and my parents would call it triaging, you know, who needs you the most, and this keeping the plate spinning, and you give a bit more attention to this one, and you got that one spinning. Now you got to move to this one. And it's having, I think I've never had 3. I went from 2 to 4. I have twins, but having that many kids, 3 and up, I think that that's a shift. It's a big shift in the way you have to parent and split your time. And you have to be, and you every day probably you kind of go to bed thinking that kid could have used a little more, and tomorrow's a new day.
100%. And thank God before it was too late, we got our boys in this program that's holistic and is really geared toward actually teaching my middle child that he does have a voice, teaching him how to express his thoughts and feelings, and teaching him that he is not Rowan's little brother, but he is Luca, and he is his own person. So I feel really, really quite blessed that even if it stopped tomorrow, he's had 5 straight months of just coming out
That sounds
of his,
excellent.
I know it has been so powerful to find a holistic program. People hear the word holistic and someone said it to me the other day, I was like, oh, well, you must be into all that like acupuncture stuff. And I was like, no. Holistic means, that you're actually you're actually acknowledging of and aware of just angles, because we can become just so one-dimensional and not see other regions and other important aspects of a whole person and grow those parts. So I'm just I feel so lucky to have found a place where, and letting the other one know, hey, guess what? It's not all about you.
That would be great that if schools incorporated more of that approach. I want to know before we wrap it up, I want to know what's next with you. Are you doing more collaborations with Rain? Or do you have something else in the works? Has the pandemic inspired you to do something, I know it sounds like you want to do more to talk about your culture but what's kind of going on? What's making you excited? What do you have on the go right now?
So I'm working with one artist on a major, and it's not like a massive known artist, which I'm not used to working this intensively with someone who is less known. But I believe that she's an absolute superstar, and it's really exciting. And it's nice to have a side project like that right now. I'm not sure how much longer it'll go on, but it's been really intense and wonderful.
Working together in what sense? Songwriting or
I'm mentoring her, and I'm doing her co-writes and collaborating with her. I'm executive producing her project, and it's awesome. And then I can see that I'm seeding myself to do a solo project soon. I don't know if it'll be in the next year or two, but I think I probably am starting to seed that. And I will always do Moon versus Sun. I think that's just going to be ongoing. We have some shows coming up. I have some solo shows coming up once, things calm down a little bit. What else? Yeah, that's kind of it. I do master classes and help people and coach them in music and narrative.
I'm loving hearing your take too on your culture and motherhood and womanhood. And I would love to hear more of that too, because it's you have such an interesting story. And I think also, you're so dynamic and you've lived so many lives now. And I would love to tap into that more and hear more about that, where that journey is going to take you and how it's going to influence you as well. I
think what's cool, what's neat is that I'm less and less feeling like I'm in a position where I need to skirt anyone's feelings, and I can just honor and I'm really beginning to just trust my journey and my path. So I'm not scared that I'm getting it wrong.
I've hit that point too.
Really
and
cool.
that is the best feeling, when you start to say, I just really need to be true to myself and honest with myself and go on my path and not worry so much about and you know what, honestly, when you start doing that, sure, there'll always the people that have anything to say against it. Well, they're not your audience, and they're not, but they're going to be the people who you resonate with. It means so much more to them because they see 100%. Themselves in you. They're inspired by your journey.
To be themselves. I mean, if someone makes a negative comment now toward me, I'm like, you have the wrong page.
I say that all the time. I say, this is not for you, obviously.
It's not for you, and it's not a fit, and that's fine. And I think that people I personally can't even imagine going on a page where I knew I already had, rancid feelings about someone, wanting to look at what they're spewing out and then wanting to comment on it and get mad. You are literally, it's the most transparent thing I've ever heard in my life. You're literally raging and you're just looking for a punching bag. I mean, it's not about, it's about that. It's not personal. You know what I mean?
Do you have your DMs? I'm curious, this is making me, because this is something that I'm always kind of wondering for myself. Do I turn my DMs off? Do I keep it on?
I have them off accidentally, and that's why I stopped doing my lives. I thought that no one was asking for them, or somehow I must have pocket pushed a button and butt dialed or whatever. And yeah, and I actually, I keep my DMs on, and I mean, I can't, you know, every single
it's
one.
Hard.
No, but I am acknowledging as much as possible of people's, you know, positive responses to my posts. And I try to do advice, you know, I say to moms, hey, you know, like, yeah, let's hop on a FaceTime, or put them on a FaceTime with me. I try to do, you know, community presence and balance it. But, you know, sadly we live in a system, and it's like time is money, and I have 3 kids, and I have a lot to do.
I think it's also, you have to balance your energy. So for myself, and
100%.
you know, I now as a solo parent, especially, I'll have a lot of women kind of asking me for advice, and I'm careful. For a while I was giving advice, and now I've realized when I have something to say, I'll say it, but I can't live in the past. I need to live in the future, and I need to be careful about that kind of energy.
You need to live in the present. So
in the present, totally live in the present.
Yeah, and be prepared for your future.
Building things towards my future. That's where I need to be. But to be pulled back.
No.
I think it's important to know where your boundaries are.
Keep explaining ourselves, because the truth is that any opinion or perspective can be torn apart. That's storytelling. We're all storytellers.
I think more time needs to be spent, like what you've been doing, with the reflection, with your culture, and that kind of like, I was thinking as you were talking about that, and I know we'll wrap it up soon, but I want to say what, like, you've got me thinking about this. I think that there is such an important lesson to be learned about being more connected with the earth and what we've lost, and how much bringing that back could positively impact many areas of society. And I think that's really great that you're pushing to.
If you were to put any person way back into their actual cultural essence, I think you would see a lot more connection to the earth. And so that's the only thing I'm wondering is like, as we get pulled away, what is evolution doing? Why are we being pulled away? That's my question. So, and I don't know if it's something we're supposed to be fighting or balancing or surrendering or
what are we distracting? Why are we distracting ourselves so much? Why can't
maybe it's a flaw that came in, and so the distractions are avoidant behavior. And remember, we are either, when we're not healthy, we are in a place of avoidance or chaos. Avoidance or shutting down, or chaos. Avoidance or chaos. And so, you know, there's something in the middle that is slower, it's more conscious and intentional, and it reflects ultimately what love is, you know. And love is not, I'm not a religious person, but love is patient, and love is gentle. I mean, that's Buddhism is the philosophy that most reflects the needs for healthy brain pathology. And when we're healing a brain, we're calm, we're gentle, we're quiet, we're even silent. And we're all things, you know, accepting. We're all things accepting and soothing. So I don't know. I mean, maybe the lesson is to get people to pause, you know, and do that reflection, and maybe then we can get back to the earth a bit more, you know.
And I think maybe the pandemic has created the best reset for the biggest opportunity for many of us to do that.
Maybe. I hope so.
I think that's a great note to end it on. I appreciate this so much. And if you ever want to chat again, I'd love to do this again, because you're so interesting, and I'm going to be walking away with so many takeaways that's going to be simmering for me for a while. So thank you so much for taking the time to have this chat.
Thank you so much for having me.